What's up in War Eagle War Report family? It's your guy Ike Jones, and we are back with another morning drop. Today, we are talking about transfer defensive lineman Gage Keys added now to the Auburn Tigers roster for 2024. How is he going to impact things? Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on him.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. It is Tuesday, December 19th. Ike Jones in here with Mike G talking a little bit about defensive line transfer Gage Keys, who has recently been added to the Auburn roster. Trying to see what's up on that. Before we get into the conversation, y'all need to do the necessary, which is share this video. Make sure you are doing that out there on all the social medias that you can. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel. That would definitely be a great help to us if you're out there in the land of podcasts. And make sure you're giving us that 5-star review and sharing the content with somebody else. Mike G, you got a little mic interference back there going on there. We can clear that up. But yeah, for right now, we're going to have this conversation started with Gage Keys, who is a transfer from Kansas. He is a 3-star rated out of high school transfer and been doing some good work over there for the good folks in Kansas. He's a rotational guy. Let me see if I can grab Mike G and bring him back in here. Mike.
Yeah, can you hear me?
There you go.
All right.
But yeah, rotational defensive lineman. He is 6'5", 280, 290, depending on where you're looking. PFF shows him as 290. The rival site has him listed as 280. But last season, totaling only 13 tackles, it looks like, appeared in 301 total snaps for the team, 1 sack on the season. But listen, the last guy that we got from Kansas worked out pretty well. So, I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to be Marcus Harris, but he has an opportunity to come in and add some depth to a defensive line that needs some additional depth. When you talk about attrition on the defensive line, you've got, of course, the aforementioned Marcus Harris there, who is going to be going to pro. He was 6'3", 295. So, again, if he's the 290 listed on his PFF, then he's right around the same size profile as Marcus Harris. If he's the 280 listed on Rivals, then he comes in a little light on that. I'm not sure what the Kansas site has him listed as. But then you look at the rest of the defensive line and the attrition that's going to be happening there. Of course, Nasili Kite, the 6'2", 285 transfer last year. So, again, it's right in that same size. No longer going to be on the team. Of course, he's out of eligibility unless he gets some sort of miracle waiver and wants to come back for another season. You're going to be losing Lawrence Johnson there from the interior defensive line, 6'2", 310, so more of a nose tackle type there. But he has out of eligibility. Those are the only for sure losses along that line that you're going to have are those two. But those two are pretty big losses. And you saw the difference that Nasili Kite made as far as the rotation is concerned along that defensive front. But the emergence, of course, along the defensive line of the young guy, Keldrick Falk, there at the D-end position helped out a lot to make sure that you could solidify some things up there. 6'6", 288 coming in for Keldrick Falk. Darren Reed Jr., the other guy that had not really had a lot of opportunities, 6'3", 295, also up there. He is a true freshman, likely going to be getting some time. Coach Freeze mentioned him specifically when he was talking about defensive line and the potential for guys rotating in for the bowl game. So looking forward to seeing what Darren Reed can provide. And then not sure what's going to happen with Justin Rogers and Zacchaeus Walker. Both of those guys, juniors, another year of eligibility. Justin Rogers, I think, is on his last year of eligibility coming back next year. Zeke Walker has, of course, been a stalwart and not played a lot because of injuries, but they're along the defensive front as well. Mike G, thoughts about Gage Keys and his potential to be a part of this defensive line?
Defensive line, right? Bolstering the trenches was always going to be super important for Auburn. They lose some pretty big names on defense. So in my opinion, they have to get better in other areas. Now the defensive backfield was the strength of this team. I still think that they'll be pretty good, but they may not be the best on the team. Can the defensive line step up? Maybe. This guy comes in from Kansas. You kind of read down his stats. He's the second transfer that Auburn is getting in this cycle. The first one was Robert Lewis. So, the 3-star prospect. What you hope with a guy like this is that year that he's had at the college level translates to him being closer to like a 4-star guy at this point.
Well, so
right?
Gage Keys, this will be a grad transfer for him. He played his first couple of seasons with Minnesota, not getting a lot of snaps there. He did see a few snaps in his third year there. He had the one season there with Kansas where he played more snaps this season. So he is a grad transfer at this time. But to your point,
yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, he spent 3 years with Minnesota before transferring. Yeah,
and so this first year of like not full time, but rotational duty with Kansas will get him into a place where he's ready to play more snaps here with Auburn.
Yeah, like I said, he got some recognition in the Sun Belt, as a player who was like third team Sun Belt or something like that. I don't know. I don't know that this kid is a star in this offense. This defense, but you hope that he comes in and helps you bring some depth, gives you some solid reps. Again, has played at this level, and can come in and kind of contribute on the level that a 4-star prospect would.
Yeah.
That's what
Marcus Harris was a 2-star out of high school, right?
Right.
So it's not. I don't want to get caught up in what his high school star rating was. Didn't have, and let's be clear, he didn't have a ton of productivity at Kansas this last season. But what you're hoping, like to your point, is you get good rotational depth from him, somebody who can come in and there's not going to be a significant drop-off, because that was the biggest concern for Coach Freeze with his defense along the defensive line didn't feel like he could rotate enough guys through where playing tempo in offense doesn't hurt your defense because Marcus Harris is having to play too many snaps, right? So hopefully he's going to be a guy who they feel comfortable rotating in at that D tackle, which is where I think he's going to slot in position, or maybe even a little bit at defensive end. Probably not as much at defensive end, but D tackle is probably where he's going to play the vast majority of his snaps.
It reminds me a little bit kind of like obviously he plays on offensive line, but in terms of profile, he reminds me a little bit of Gunnar Britton in terms of the pickup. A guy coming in with little eligibility left, lots of experience, but hasn't played much at the Power 5 level. So
Kansas is a P5 school. In the
right. Just not a lot, just not a ton at the Power 5 level, right? Yeah. So but has a chance to be a solid. Listen, Gunnar Britton was a solid player for Auburn last year, right? I expect him to maybe contribute close to that level. It's going to be interesting to see what if defensively, as a team, they continue to not even continue. God always takes me for this one. I had some doubts about the player evaluations for a lot of the guys they brought in last year. And I'll be interested to see if they hit on more of these guys that they're bringing in this year. Because, again, a lot of the guys who your main contributors that were existing on the roster are leaving this year. And you got some holes to fill. Right. And, is this staff going to evaluate better from the portal?
They did a decent job along the defensive portal, right? So you think about Mosiah Nasili Kite. He came in and he did well. Larry Nixon was okay, right? He wasn't like groundbreaking, but he was okay. You had I'm forgetting somebody immediately. Oh, Lawrence Johnson. I just talked about him. He was pretty decent this last year for Auburn. So they did okay on the defensive side in the portal. It was really just the wide receivers, man. Like I think the hype around the wide receivers makes everybody
brought the whole portal class down.
It feels so much worse because you look at the lack of contribution that you got from those wide receivers based upon the hype that they had coming in. Justin Rogers, he was a defensive line transfer from last year, so he did okay. I'm just scrolling through. Jalen McLeod, defensive transfer, did okay, right? So Austin Keys, defensive transfer for last year. Like, they hit on the defense. But it was the offense really where you saw, like, you got, of course, the contributions from Fairweather, and then defensive line, Gunnar Britton, you already mentioned, Dylan Wade that you mentioned already. Avery Jones, who we've not talked about, right? Offensive line, they did okay in the transfer. It was really just the wide receivers that when you like look at the perception and you're just like, nah, bro, like they didn't do well in the portal. It was just the wide receivers. I mean, Peyton Thorne, for whatever you want to take him to be, was okay, right? He wasn't terrible, right? He didn't live up to the
He
expectations.
just wasn't like, you're judging it. Were these kids what you expected them to be?
Yeah.
Right. So the question for Gage Keys is what does Auburn expect him to be? Do they expect him to be a depth piece, or do they expect him to come in and challenge for a starting job? Right now, to me, he looks like a depth piece. Right.
Yeah.
So
I can't. I mean,
so this would be a failure only if he doesn't play a ton.
Right.
Correct.
Like
if he doesn't see the field at all, then it was like, okay, you brought in another warm body with 1 year of eligibility left that you didn't play.
Yeah.
Now, to your point, that happened more on the offensive side of the ball than it did on the defensive side of the ball. So either guys didn't play or they played, but they were not good.
Right.
And this year, again, this was not a commitment that was going to knock your socks off and be like, oh my God, look, they're killing it in the portal. But you do have to continue to build depth, and to me, for this staff, everything is about getting to year 3. Continue to recruit from high school, bring in experience where you can, and get to year 3 the best way you can. I still believe, I know that they don't believe that they're going to be where they need to be in terms of being able to do a lot of things they want to do until year 3. And if you want to get there at a serviceable level, bolstering this defense is going to be super important to making sure that you can at least hold serve in year 2. Because offensively, Auburn fans might be in for a ride. So you've got to bolster this defense. You got to try to make them as good as they were last year.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the offense, listen, there's a lot of time between now and when we start playing games. The offense has time to make some strides. Mm-hmm. But to your point, you don't know, because you're not getting a lot back in your defensive unit that was so good. You don't know what you're going to have there, right? There's a lot of very good pieces, not just, oh, well, they were solid. Like DJ James is not like a guy who you just replace.
Yeah.
Jalen Simpson's not a guy who you just replace. I don't care how talented the person is behind him. There is something that talent plus experience is kind of a thing that you can't just automatically replace. You hope the talented guy steps in and can play that well immediately. But talent plus experience is difficult to replace. DJ and Simp are going to be difficult to replace. Nehemiah Pritchett going to be difficult to replace. You're missing a lot of snaps with Larry Nixon gone out of there as well, right? And you're hoping you fill it in with some guys that can come in and contribute immediately, but you got some work to do to get there. Yep. And then Marcus Harris, I didn't even mention him, but yeah, he's a guy who Keys has got to figure out. They got to figure out, can Keys replace however many snaps Marcus Harris played last year to some degree? Because he was a big piece of what you did along your defensive line, particularly in the run game.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to talk more about this, of course, but we want to hear what you all have to say about Gage Keys, new transfer D tackle for Auburn coming up in the 2024 season, came over from Kansas. Before we do, today's show is brought to you by the good folks at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip the trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why America's #1 meal kit is HelloFresh. After a full day of work, there's still so much to do. Some days feel like eating a wholesome dinner is next to impossible. With HelloFresh, you can turn busy weeknights into memorable meal times with delicious, practical options designed to save you time, like their 15-minute meals. Make hosting this holiday a joy rather than a hassle with the help of HelloFresh Market. From the crowd-pleasing charcuterie boards to photo-worthy desserts, it's easy to add these party pleasers to your weekly order, saving you so much time. Go to HelloFresh.com/RapportFree and use code RapportFree for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while the subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/RapportFree when you use code RapportFree. Getting access to America's #1 meal kits, HelloFresh. We appreciate the folks at HelloFresh for continuing to sponsor the War Rapport. they make a guy like me look like he can cook. I took pictures of something I made with my HelloFresh thing, and I sent it to my mom, and she was so proud. Then I had to be like, Mom, I did this, but yeah.
Fake it bake.
But I still cooked it though. You know, it was me. It was just the
Yeah.
ingredients. You know what I'm saying? It was me.
Yeah, true.
It tasted decent too. You know, so there's a plus in that. All right, let's get to the comment section here. Auburn dad says, expect him to be a rotational piece, but he's good at pass rush.
Getting after the quarterback is going to be important.
Especially as a defensive lineman, right? Like, the pass rush is something that Auburn just did not do well at. Like, let's just be honest about it. We were not good at pass rush this season, and have to get better at having guys being able to win without blitzes. Winning without having to blitz is so crucial for your defense being elite against passing offenses that now have evolved the way that they have. And even in the SEC, where it hadn't been a thing, it's a thing now. You got to be able to get after the quarterback. Auburn needs to be able to do that, especially from the interior defensive line. That's priceless when you have a guy who you can line up over a guard or a center, and they can put pressure right in the face of a quarterback. Hopefully he can turn into that kind of guy. Lance Morgan jumps in and says, War Damn Eagle, early signing day tomorrow. If we get all the flips, they got us finishing second being the highest. If we get the majority, we're around sixth class in the country. Let's get it. Yeah. We will have wall-to-wall coverage of early signing day tomorrow for you guys, so definitely look forward to that.
Look, Trevon said top 5.
He did. He did say that months ago.
Yeah, he said top 5. Free said top 7 by year 3, or everybody's going to be looking for a job. Top 7 by year 2 is a significant accomplishment. Yeah. So we'll see where they land, but they're going to have to flip somebody big to get there, and they have to hold on to Perry. So, he had a late in-home visit from Saban. And people don't like to hear this, Ike, but Nick Saban says he wants you. Like, I mean, if he's showing up to your house, that's going to be a pretty convincing.
Oh, Bama fans said that Nick Saban never wanted Perry Thompson.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Perry Thompson wasn't that good, so I don't know what. Apparently, Bama fans know more about what's going on. Apparently, they don't want him.
Good enough to show up to his house late here in the process before early signing day.
He's not that good, apparently. Says the Bama fans that as soon as he committed to Auburn, they were talking about how good he was not and how much they had not recruited him for real. So.
Holding on to Perry Thompson, to me, after getting a late in-home visit from Nick Saban before signing day would be a double win, right? Because it really solidifies what you're selling to recruits. If Saban is going to Perry Thompson this late in the process, he's making commitments to him. Right? Let's be real. If he's going this late in the process, he's probably telling him, you are going to be the dude. You're going to be our next guy. Right? Like, forget Auburn. Come to Bama. Look at our recent history of wide receiver. It's been great. He's got that to sell. Right, like listen, there is a super effective pitch there, Isaac, and Saban's going to make it and try to get this kid in there. So we'll see, but I think holding on to Perry Thompson is going to be key to trying to get that top 7 class this year.
Yeah, he definitely is going to be a big portion. Listen, the Freeze 5 becomes quickly the Freeze 3 and pending 4 if you don't land Perry Thompson on early signing day, because Ryan Williams, of course, is not going to be signing tomorrow. He's going to be signing on National Signing Day. So,
right.
Steve Bradley jumps in and says, is there any concern moving forward with the O-line, especially from the portal, or are we waiting until after signing day and all bowl games are over? I am not concerned with the portal at all right now. Coach Freeze has said that listen, he's admitted this is not necessarily his strength, is getting these instant flips and things like that from the portal. He's more of a relationship guy, but I think that he is waiting until after he figures out what's happening with this signing class. There are a couple of offensive linemen that he's still after at early signing day, trying to figure out if they're going to be coming along in this class before he turns his attention to the portal. And I just don't even know that, again, how I think people confuse how good someone is with how much they've played already. And
Right.
I don't think our offensive line was as bad as a lot of people like to make it make. I think we had some issues at tackle. Interior offensive line, I think we were actually pretty good. So someone not making the depth chart, like look how good Connor Lew was. And Avery Jones still started in front of him, right? We were good at interior offensive line this season. And so there may be some guys that just haven't played a lot that are actually pretty good that are sitting on the bench right now. When you talk about the Tate Johnsons of the world or the Braden Joiners, who was a true freshman, I always forget his name. He was the other true freshman in this class, and I for whatever reason, when I see his face, and I always forget his name when I start to try to reach for it. But Clay Whedon, there are guys that are on the bench who haven't played a single snap yet that could be good play. Jeremiah Wright, right? Like, we've got guys. So I'm not as worried about the offensive line or the necessity to go out and get some guys, because Dylan Senda, didn't even mention him, right? Like, there's guys, but because if you go and get somebody out of the portal, they are not coming with the expectation that they're going to sit on the bench, right? Like, and so you have to weigh out whether or not they are going to be a quality competitive piece or they're an obvious upgrade, right? Like, are they going to be good with being a depth piece, or are they an obvious upgrade if you go and get them out of the portal? If you go and get them out of high school, you can sell them on a process of development and waiting in the wings, and if they're that good, they'll come out and start immediately. It's a little bit easier of a sell to a true freshman than it is to a guy with 1 or 2 years left of eligibility that they're going to come in and rotate or sit on the bench. So I'm not really worried about the O-line right now, except for at tackle.
Yeah. Look, the O-line was not Auburn's biggest problem last year.
Yeah.
It's not even close. So I expect them to continue to develop down there and put together something solid, but I'm not that concerned about O-line at this juncture.
Yeah, not right now. Lance Morgan jumps in, says, well, Freeze said he hasn't navigated this portal as effective as the last due to him concentrating on high school. Just talked about this, which is fine for now because sustainability comes from high school.
I agree with this 100%.
Yeah.
Like, look, I'm telling you, recruiting out of high school is the backbone of all the programs who have sustained success. You have to break the cycles, man. One of the things, the messages coming out of this athletic department that I really like is that Freeze is saying we got to break the cycle from the portal, especially at QB.
Yeah.
We cannot recruit top-level QBs if every year we're going looking for the next one-hit wonder from the portal. So let's get through year 2, and let's bet on Walker White or any guy that we bring in between now and then.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that. I like putting all the chips on Walker White, baby. Right?
Yeah, I am not mad with them trying to figure out how to develop a bench and say, hey, all right, next man up is truly a thing at Auburn.
Yeah.
When it's your time, you're going to come in and shine. You've learned the system. You've grown in this system, and you have stepped in. You know the culture, and it's because it is. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to match culture fit, not just scheme fit or plugging a position in. Culture fits are so difficult to do when you're meshing so many different people from the portal because you have so little time to figure out how to make those folks gel. And it's easy to fake culture if you're winning, right? But the minute you start losing, or the minute you go undefeated and don't get a chance to go play in the freaking college football playoff, your culture falls apart.
Yep.
Not saying that that's going to happen at Florida State, but I am saying that has to be a big blow to those young men that play in that locker room where they're just like, yo, come on, seriously? Right. And so it's difficult to get that right because you have, as Coach Freeze talked about, so little time to figure out who this person is.
Right.
Like, you can watch their film and say, oh, they do well at this and it. Are they a good fit for your locker room? If you're not giving me a chance to get you in and we talk face to face, I'm just going to get one Zoom call, and then if we get the first visit, then you commit. Like, that's not time to figure out whether or not that person really fits your locker room and the culture and their work ethic. And it's hard, man. And that's why building it from high school is so much better. You have more time to develop that young man as a person and as a player in your system and your culture.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, listen, it's going to be a rough. I think just accept a rough year or two that shows some promise for the chance at getting the year 3 where you're competing for the playoff. You can start the streak of competing for the playoff regularly. Yeah. The 12-team playoff.
Riley M says, did y'all see the foot race between Cam and PT?
Did you see this?
Perry Thompson. Those boys were moving. I did see the video of those guys running in the indoor facility.
It looked like Cam got him by like this much. It was a photo finish.
It looked pretty much like a what was more impressive is that Perry was out in front pretty good early. Yeah. Cam ran him down.
He walked him down. Look, at the end of the day, what I saw in this video, especially at the finish line, was terrible camera work. Awful. We could not see who won. But it was kind of cool seeing those guys out there. Didn't it make you feel good about Perry, though? Like, he's out here. Is he out here foot racing Cam Coleman to flip the Bama? Like,
feels unlikely.
It feels unlikely. So I thought that was a cool moment. And those guys already building camaraderie as top wide receiver prospects, I think is pretty special. And these are kind of the things that don't show up in the stat sheets that really make a good team great. Is guys being there for each other, supporting each other. They're going to be both going to be top prospects, looking to play early, looking to make their mark on their history at Auburn football, and they're already getting along and competing at a high level. I love everything about that. Like, I don't think that was just a foot race. I think that was a foreshadowing. Like, I think that was a foreshadowing.
Yeah, I listen. I'm hoping that becomes, listen, get them on campus, and then we can start the conversation about who's the fastest wide receiver again, and get Jay Fair into the foot race. And I don't know who else is going to be able to compete with that group, right? You get those guys and Jay. I'm gonna ask Jay, does he feel like he could have smoked both of them in that foot race, and see what happens after they sign. Let's see. TK says, to build your team, I disagree at QB this year, though. Get an upgrade makes sense, but I'm not the coach. Listen, it has to be an obvious upgrade, and that's this is the
right. It got to be an obvious upgrade,
yeah. Like, and not a statistical upgrade. Like, don't fall in love with the stats. Fall in love with the tape and an understanding of how they fit into what your offense is going to be good at. This staff, I think, has evaluated where we are today and determined the best opportunity they have for improvement is figuring out how to get Peyton Thorne to the next step in his progression. I am not mad with that decision at all. As it stands right now, it makes a ton of sense because, again, it helps to build a progression of Peyton Thorne year 1, better Peyton Thorne year 2, and whomever is going to be the next person, Holden Gerner, Walker White, in that third year will have had time to groom in this system. Hank Brown, I don't want to discount that young man, excuse me, has opportunity to build into your system and be the heir apparent. I think that makes a ton of sense as opposed to going out and getting another 1-year rental.
Yeah, agreed. Like, it's got to make sense. TK is forgetting about the salary cap that we have now in college football. Right? You had to have money to spend on this stuff, apparently. So it is what it is, but
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this thing progresses. Lance Morgan says getting Harris from the portal will help with replacing DJ and Simp's production. Speaking of A.J. Harris, the Georgia D-bag defensive back
Who pissed you off this morning, like?
The defensive back that is in the portal currently. So we will see how things progress with that young man. He apparently had a good visit by all accounts of all of the people who keep up with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Art Thou says Saban's just raising the price on Perry to keep Ryan, in my opinion. So he thinks that Saban is paying more attention to Perry Thompson, so we will go out and increase how much we're trying to recruit him and take our eyes off of the ball in trying to get Ryan Williams in the boat. He thinks that this is all strategic.
Look, at the end of the day, if that's a factor, let him go. Right. At this point, you probably, if Auburn got Perry Thompson, it means that the NIL money was equal to his top offers. Right. At this point in the prospect, if paying him more money is the key to keeping him in your class, let him go. Right. Because he's going to be a problem for you. And I would say that about any kid. Hugh Freeze has said that we have the resources, to make kids feel blessed, but that can't come with entitlement. If you do this, you're creating entitlement. I'm sorry. He's already a second, top 25 prospect in the country, the whole country coming in. And there's a guy in front of him, and you're still going to have to get these guys to come in as top prospects and play at a high level and compete. And the money part of this, man, I mean, it's the part I like. The kids are getting their money. Don't get me wrong, but in some ways, I think it is hurting the product at some schools, right? Because you've got this different dynamic here with guys who may come in with the entitlement that Hugh Freeze is worried about. So again, can't stress enough. If this is a factor, just let them go.
Yeah.
Right. Just let them go.
Yeah, listen, I don't think you want to get into bidding wars over these young men, right? Like it is what it is. You offer what you offer as far as what you can develop them into, and if they don't see the benefit of that and they're just here for a bag, then you're never going to be able to keep them, right? Like it's always going to be about who can, we're not hiring, paid hitmen and assassins out here. We're trying to build a football program, and I don't know that anybody has proven that method actually works. Like you can get a couple of guys to fill spots, but if you're just going out there trying to hire assassins, then you might get a 9 or 10 win season, but you're not going to have the kind of success that teams who have been in the top of college football for the last decade have done perennially, and that's not the way that they've done it. So even in this new climate, I haven't seen anybody take advantage of it to that degree, and maybe someone will prove me wrong, but they have to do it for more than one season for it to prove wrong. You can't just work once and then all of a sudden it's the template or the blueprint. That's not how it works. Last one here before we get out of here. Daniel Moultrie asks, Ike, what times does the stream start tomorrow? That is a good question. I have not yet decided how early, because they will get these things rolling in pretty early in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm old. Listen, I'm my kid's at home with me this week, so I have to be cognizant of that sort of thing and make sure he gets breakfast and all that. But I will try to get up, and it's going to be earlier than the morning drop, so it probably will be in either the 7 or 8 o'clock hour. But just keep your notification bells on. We will get in here and get this thing cranking tomorrow for our early signing day coverage. I look forward to having another marathon live with those of you who will be able to be on board with us for that. All right, we will get out of here. We appreciate you guys dropping in with us. As always, the morning drop is brought to you by show sponsor Rogue Shop. Make sure you head to rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT when you do that. Rogue Shop is America's #1 online dispensary, having things for stress, sleep, anxiety, and pain. If you have any of those things going on, Rogue Shop has a remedy for you. Head over there using code REPORT. Again, we will be back at you guys tomorrow morning, early signing day edition of the War Report. Make sure that you are subscribed, liking the channel, all of those things. Like this video before you get out of here. Turn your notification bells on so you know when we're going live tomorrow. We look forward to that. Until then, until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.